Folks, welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. It is so great to be with you this morning. Hey, what in the world is up with the Three Stooges? You know the Three Stooges I'm talking about. Lindsey Graham, former CIA director and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and then Danang Dick Blumenthal, Senator Dick Blumenthal from Connecticut, going to Ukraine, egging Zelensky on to attack Russia. I believe that's what's happening. Giving Zelensky a false hope that somehow the United States is going to be there to keep funding the Zelensky war machine. Why? Because these neocons like Blumenthal and Graham and Pompeo all want one thing: the expansion of NATO for their defense contractor friends to profit off of. That's what they want. They want military escalation. These three are going to bring us to the brink of World War III. Mark my words on this. That's why I'm calling them the World War III Stooges. Okay? Now, President Trump says he knew nothing about this attack that Zelensky ran on Russia, taking out some of their bombers, taking out certain bridges. This completely destroys the peace process that President Trump was trying to institute. This Zelensky, even being egged on by Blumenthal and Graham and Pompeo, ought to know better than this. Do not cross President Trump. And apparently President Trump had no idea this happened. So we're going to go through this. And it turns out Lindsey Graham has a long history of warmongering, going all the way back to Iraq. I've got the clips to prove it to you. That's what we're going to talk about on the program today. Before we do, let's talk about my friends over at Colonial Metals. You want to know why you ought to be in gold? If we end up going to World War III, thanks to the likes of these clowns. So Colonial Metals Group can help you protect your assets with gold like no other investment. Gold continues to make highs. It certainly looks like it will continue that way. There's no sign of us cutting our deficit or our debt. Yes, we're reducing spending, but the interest payment on our debt alone equals our entire defense budget. It's not going away. Gold is the safe haven for wild stock markets, wild everything. Gold is the place, especially when you got North Korea, Iran, China, all waging their own Pearl Harbor on the American dollar. So what are you waiting for? Gold has stood the test of time. Put a portion of your assets into gold. How much is right for you? You got to talk to the folks at Colonial Metals. Make your own decision on that front. freegoldguide.com/grant. That's freegoldguide.com/grant. 800-458-7356. 800-458-7356. That is the number to reach them at. I promise you, you're going to like these guys over at Colonial Metals Group. All right, with that, folks, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, welcome, folks. So this is what we're up against. Check it out. Lindsey Graham, Danang Dick Blumenthal, with Zelensky and Pompeo, I'm sure, is around the corner.
7-3.
All meeting in Ukraine. And what happens right after this meeting? Right after this meeting, you know what happens? Ukraine launches a full-scale attack against Russia, debilitating peace talks, I think wiping out peace talks, and you got these two clowns right there at the heart of it all. Why? Not for American stability, not for world stability, but I believe to enrich defense contractors, Northrop Grumman, you name it. This is what they want. They want an expansion of NATO, and they want the militarization of the world, and they would like nothing more than to bring us to World War III. I'm convinced of it. I don't know how else to explain their behavior. Lindsey Graham sounded like the Lindsey Graham of old here. Listen.
President Trump said that Ukraine doesn't have good cards. Well, Russia's much bigger and has a lot more people. I get that. But the world has a lot of cards against Russia.
First off, let me say this. How dare you sink President Trump's words? You know, it was President Trump that said, you don't hold the cards. America holds the cards. It is absolutely true. How dare you, Lindsey Graham, come out and criticize President Trump. He's the commander in chief. You don't undermine him like that.
President Trump said that Ukraine doesn't have good cards. Well, Russia's much bigger and has a lot more people. I get that. But the world has a lot of cards against Russia. And one of those cards that we have is about to be played in the United States Senate. In America, you have more than one person at the card table. We have 3 branches of government, and the House and the Senate are poised to act. What would change our mind? If Russia came to the table, agreed to a ceasefire, and earnest.
What would change your mind? Russia coming in? Russia has already said they're willing to talk about this. Zelensky keeps launching bombs. Zelensky keeps escalating. Zelensky keeps opening his mouth, as President Trump says. But it's not just Zelensky opening his mouth. It's people like Lindsey Graham. Now, Lindsey Graham is a Republican, and he partners with Dick Blumenthal to go over there. This is why they're globalists. They are big government globalists. Well, you want to hear what my buddy Steve Bannon had to say about what should happen to these clowns?
I don't understand how you could want to jail a U.S. senator because he's saying something you don't like. Because that sounds like the worst of the deep state.
No, it's absolutely what he's doing. What he's doing over there right now is stirring it up. He's giving the Ukrainians.
But it's not illegal.
He's giving the Ukrainians false hope. He's giving Ukrainians false hope that we're there to support them on engaging Russia in a kinetic conflict, and we are not. President Trump,
so
one of the
maybe
central
he's
parts
wrong.
of President Trump. Hey.
So maybe he's wrong. But what do you say? Throw him in jail.
Two things ought to happen. Either cancel his passport and don't let him back in the country, or put him in jail if he comes back. Lindsey Graham is stirring it up right now. And people better wake up to the fact that we're getting sucked into this war.
Well, we're already sucked in. So stirring it up isn't necessarily illegal. But breaking the Logan Act is, meaning negotiating on behalf of the United States when you're not authorized to do so, basically is what it means. Here's what also is treasonous behavior. Forcing America into World War III when we shouldn't be there for the sole reason you want to enrich defense contractors. So if you want to make an argument to throw him in jail, you can make an argument that he's trying to throw American citizens into war with Russia and China and the rest of Russia's allies. That is not a good spot to be. Now, am I calling for Lindsey Graham to be jailed? Not right now. Am I calling for his passport to be seized? Not right now. But here's what I am calling for. President Trump ought to haul his ass into his office, sit him straight down in the Oval Office and say, you pull that stunt again, there's going to be hell to pay. And I will dispatch the Justice Department to investigate Logan Act violations and possible treasonous behavior if you keep pushing America to a war it doesn't want to be in. That's not free speech. That's ultimately going to get Americans killed. In my mind, that's murder. So you want to jail somebody for something? Lindsey Graham could be brought up on those charges. But before we get to that point, all it takes is President Trump to pull him into the Oval Office. And that's not going to mean anything for Dick Blumenthal. And I expect this nonsense from Dick Blumenthal. But for whatever reason, President Trump and Lindsey Graham, he's got a friendship with this guy. Maybe he thinks he can use him more than Lindsey Graham hurts him. But at this point right now, Lindsey Graham is out on an island all his own. And it's, folks, it is not good. Here is Steve Bannon continuing.
Good. Tulsi Gabbard's got to let us know. Did anyone in Intel at all have anything to do with this? Did anybody have a heads up? Did anybody? And if not, who the hell's running the Ukraine desk? Who's running the Russia desk? Same thing with Ratcliffe.
So this is the idea. What did we know before the attack? I think Lindsey Graham and Dick Blumenthal knew about the attack. Did they not go and tell the CIA or the intelligence apparatus that this was looming so our commander-in-chief wouldn't be blindsided as he's trying to get Russia and Ukraine to talk about peace? And if they held back that information from the intelligence apparatus from the White House, I have a big problem with that. Look, did the president know anything? Caroline Leavitt was asked about it.
More on Ukrainian drone attack on Russia. Was President Trump informed in advance by Ukraine that the attack is coming?
He was not.
He was not. Well, that's a betrayal of trust from Zelensky if he wants to recruit President Trump as an ally. But even more so, it's a betrayal of trust from Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, I get Dick Blumenthal's not going to talk to President Trump. But Lindsey Graham, Mike Pompeo led the CIA. What in the world is he doing over there? Some are talking that maybe the CIA was involved in this. And would that mean they were involved without President Trump's knowledge? You've got John Ratcliffe running the CIA. What did he know? John Ratcliffe's not going to run an operation without President Trump's approval. So that means, are there rogue CIA agents inside of the CIA running operations for Ukraine? I don't know. Maybe. We're going to run that down here in just a little bit. But before I do, I want to tell you about my friends over at get20now.com. How would it be if I told you you could get 20% annualized interest on your investment paid out monthly, direct deposited into your account? This is exactly what they're doing at NFN8. The website is get20now.com. Just fill out the form. They'll call you right back. They'll give you all the details. I have signed up for this sizable investment with them. They've lived up to their promises. I'm getting that money direct deposited into my account every month. I've locked in to the rate. What investment today can you lock in? You can't lock in Bitcoin, even though this is about Bitcoin. So you're investing in the mining of Bitcoin. You're investing in data centers. You're investing in technology that enables NFN8 to mine Bitcoin and cryptocurrency at a very inexpensive rate, which allows them to pay you this interest rate on your investment. But if you were to do this on your own, you'd either need millions of dollars or you'd be investing in wild investments with wild swings. I don't like the swings, I'll just tell you. I like knowing what I'm going to get. And get20now.com is all about that. Get20now.com, again, up to 20% annualized interest on your investment paid out monthly. All right? So that's what it's all about. Get20now.com. That's get20now.com. So Michael Flynn, the great general, he's become a friend of mine, weighed in on this. See, everybody is upset about what's going on here because nobody wants World War III other than the neocons in Washington that are hell-bent on it. President Trump has been the peace president. Peace through strength? Yes. Peace through prosperity? Yes. Notice what President Trump is doing. He's bringing the threats of the vengeance of America if you don't fall in line, but he's also bringing the prosperity of America in line if you do. And this is a great recipe for peace. What does Lindsey Graham bring? More bombs.
Lindsey Graham and Denang Dick Blumenthal. I call him Denang Dick because he got into politics on a lie based on, talking about, he lied about his service in Vietnam. So Denang Dick Blumenthal out of Connecticut and Lindsey Graham out of South Carolina, both U.S. senators, just visited Zelensky. And of course, 24 hours later, they're attacking and destroying a component of the nuclear triad of Russia. So you have to ask yourself, was there a message that they were supposed to convey to Zelensky? I hope not. I hope that's not the case. If there was a message, that puts us in a much, much more dangerous position. If Graham and Blumenthal walked away from there and had no idea that this was going to occur, then that shows you how foolish those two are and how much of a fool Zelensky thinks of the United States of America, not just these two U.S. senators. So that's another aspect that people must take into account with this visit.
So do you think that Graham and Blumenthal didn't know? Of course not. I guarantee Zelensky told them, and I promise you with Pompeo there. They may have egged Zelensky on to do this. And I do believe that Zelensky is a fool in this because he's siding with pawns, with puppets. And when I say they're pawns and puppets, Graham and Blumenthal and Pompeo are pawns and puppets of the defense industry, of the industrial defense complex. They're owned by them. Zelensky thinks they're more powerful than President Trump. I don't think so. These two guys in Ukraine, and by the way, Graham and Blumenthal, there's some evidence they spent millions upon millions of dollars on these trips. $40 million, something like that. It's insanity, the amount of money that has allegedly been spent for their trips over there. This is taxpayer dollars. So when I tell you something is fishy going on, I mean it, and they're undermining American peace process with Russia, and that's what they have done here. Now, you want to see who Lindsey Graham really is? He has a long history of this.
I believe that Saddam Hussein is giving aid and comfort, training and assistance to al-Qaeda murderers, that he has weapons of mass destruction. He is lying when he says he doesn't, and he will never voluntarily disarm. 500 inspectors, 5,000 inspectors are not going to make him disarm. He is a danger to our country and the world. He has killed his own people, and you're not going to disarm him by diplomacy. It's going to take
military action. And what do? We went and started a war that lasted decades for nothing. Regime change in these areas don't work because the people are not capable of democracy and capitalism. They're just not. But there were a lot of people on board with Saddam Hussein and weapons of mass destruction. I was one of them. I was duped as well. I'll admit it. I was for the war when it happened, and I can admit that it was a mistake now with hindsight. But I wasn't a United States senator. I was just a low-level reporter running around. And actually, the first war, Gulf War, I was in college. What was that? 1991, I guess, graduating from college. So this weapons of mass destruction was wrong. But Lindsey Graham now proves he has a history of being wrong on this stuff. So first it was Iraq. He got us into that. And him and his neocons and the John McCain and George Bushes of the world got us smack dab in the middle of that war. They are hell-bent on having America fight Russia, which is why I do believe in many respects it's treasonous behavior. Because if it's only for the idea of making the military-industrial complex rich, then that's treasonous because you're going to get American men killed. And this goes back a ways. Listen, this is him and McCain.
We're going to go back and tell our colleagues what Russia's up to and the ball.
This is in 2016 when President Trump won the first time, okay? This is what he does after President Trump wins.
Fix what they're doing in the Ukraine. We're going to get briefed about Georgia. We hope to make 2017 a year of offense. We believe that Putin has hacked into our elections in America, that he's trying to undermine democracy all over the world.
President Trump had just won. So what are you saying there? Are you going down the road of the leftist Trump is Putin's puppet nonsense? Do you see what I mean? This man is not a good man. And yet, Mr. President, if you see this, please distance yourself from Lindsey Graham, or at the very least, bring him into the Oval Office and give him a whipping. And he deserves it. There was a time where Lindsey Graham was an ally of Trump. I mean, I remember him being an ally of Trump during some of the impeachment inquiries. But again, his first and foremost allegiance appears to be to the military-industrial complex and the globalists.
It's time for new sanctions to hit him hard as an individual, his energy sector, his banking sector. It is time to push back against Putin, but be a better friend to our allies over here, including Georgia.
This is a very important trip. We just left Ukraine, where we've seen firsthand.
You see who he's hanging out with? He's hanging out with Klobuchar. So you got Klobuchar, you got McCain. Now, maybe Klobuchar's not there, but Dick Blumenthal is. They're wanting war with Russia. Democrats and Republicans, if you can even call them that, they're warmongers is what they are. Here's Klobuchar again.
What happens when Russia crosses over into a country's independence, and we saw it in our own election with the attempt to influence our election.
We will be working for much tougher sanctions against Russia. They attacked the United States of America. The hacking was an attack, and we should be treated as such, and we think their financial institutions and other aspects of the Russian economy should be addressed, and we will strongly urge our colleagues to enact more meaningful and stronger sanctions against Russia because of their attack on.
So I'm going to tell you what works against Russia. President Trump's plan and President Trump's actions. He speaks tough, like he's the biggest gorilla on the playground, which he is. But yet he will also befriend. And I know a lot of people hate that President Trump is befriending dictators like Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin and even shaking the hand of Kim Jong-un. But the bottom line is we are better off talking to these leaders than we are throwing wild threats around and forcing the littlest guy on the playground, Ukraine, to go fight the biggest guy or the second biggest guy, Russia. All we're doing is egging on the little guy to go take on the big guy. And that doesn't work. What works is President Trump and Vladimir Putin sitting down in a room, get everybody there together, hash it out. Vladimir Putin, with respect for President Trump, call it a friendship. I think you may actually be able to call it a friendship, and I know that'll drive a lot of people wild, but I don't care. I'd rather befriend our enemies, keep them quiet, keep them at bay, than have them working against us and it be always on the verge of war. That's not where we want to be. But again, here, 2016, again, Lindsey Graham.
Your fight is our fight.
Ваша боротьба – це наша боротьба.
2017 will be the year of offense.
Рік 2016 рік буде.
This is literally Lindsey Graham in Ukraine saying 2017 will be the year of offense. Meaning, hey, we'll bring in the Americans. We'll come help you. Don't worry. And I'll make my friends rich at the same time.
All of us will go back to Washington and we will push the case against Russia.
I believe you will win. I am convinced you will win, and we will do everything we can to provide you with what you need to.
And that's still going on today. Even though President Trump has said enough is enough, it's not our war. And again, I get accused all the time. Even my fabulous co-host on The Morning Answer, Jen Horn, who is great. She's like a sister to me. She still constantly accuses me of being a fan of Russia. I'm not a fan of Russia. I think Russia is a corrupt nation. I think Vladimir Putin is an evil, corrupt dictator. But I also think he's very smart, and I think he's sly. And I think it's better off Russia and the United States have a mutual agreement not to bother each other than it is to constantly be badgering each other. And I do think that Russia is smarter than Zelensky, and I think Zelensky's a con man who's all about the money for himself and is riching in his own pockets at the destruction of the American economy and of the people of Ukraine and Russia, for that matter. So I've got two corrupt nations, Ukraine and Russia, fighting it out. Why is this my war? It's not. Why would I be spending money on this? You two want to fight, then you guys go have it out. But America's not getting involved. That's basically, I believe, what President Trump is saying, other than President Trump is saying, hey, we'll get involved and we'll help you negotiate peace. And I think President Trump is doing a good job at that. So how did we get to this point? RFK Jr. is not just insightful when it comes to making America healthy again. He is also insightful when it comes to the neocons, the globalists, and what they want for the world. Because all of the health stuff from a global perspective is related to the military stuff from a global perspective. I found a clip of RFK Jr. laying out the war in Ukraine, and I said, wow, this is good. I'm going to play it for you here in just a moment. But before I play that for you, I want to tell you about my friends over at Patriot Mobile. I couldn't be happier with the service that I get on my phone provided by Patriot Mobile. I've got 2 lines, 2 different networks on one phone. That means no matter where I am in the country, I've got service that works. No other carrier could do that. Patriot Mobile can. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for free activation. It's America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They'll make you a deal to switch and drop from the other company, so that's not going to hurt you financially. You can upgrade your phone. You can keep your phone. You can buy a new phone through them. Everything that the main carriers can do, Patriot Mobile can do, and switching is easy. It literally takes minutes with their 100% U.S.-based customer service. Stop funding the woke agenda by giving your money to the big 3 cell phone companies. Start funding the conservative agenda by giving your money to Patriot Mobile, which literally helps me push my message, others as well. Every single conservative function I'm at, they are there donating money. That's thanks to all of you who are with Patriot Mobile. So again, sign up today. Why you're waiting, I have no idea. You are going to love it. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for a free month service. 972-PATRIOT is the number, 972-PATRIOT, and make sure you tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. Don't wait any longer. Just do it, folks. You hear me say it every day. Just do it, for crying out loud. Just do it. Okay. RFK Jr. The guy's good. He really is.
This is a war that should have never happened. It's a war that Russians tried repeatedly to settle on terms that were very, very beneficial to Ukraine and us. The major thing they wanted was for us to keep NATO out of the Ukraine. The big military contractors want to add new countries to NATO all the time. Why? Because then that country has to conform its military purchases to NATO weapon specifications, which means certain companies, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, and Lockheed, get a trapped market.
You see what he's saying? So Ukraine wants to be in NATO. They want the protections of NATO allies. The reason a guy like Lindsey Graham and Dick Blumenthal want Ukraine in NATO is because it lines the pockets of their defense contractor friends, the military-industrial complex, confirmed by RFK Jr.
March of 2022, we committed $113 billion. Just to give you an example, we could have built a home for almost every homeless person in this country. We then committed another $24 billion since then, 2 months ago, and now President Biden is asking for another $60 billion. But the big expenses are going to come after the war.
So I want you to think about this. $24 billion, $60 billion here, and then another $16 billion, and it adds up, and you get $100 billion. Do you know the entire budget for the state of Texas is $321 billion? Now, Texas, I would assume, is a larger country, if we were, than Ukraine is, certainly larger economically. And yet we're giving the amount of billions of dollars to Ukraine that is like half the budget to run the state of Texas, to run the entire state. Roads, bridges, National Guard, all of the state agencies, education, you name it. Are you kidding me? Where's the money going?
When we have to rebuild all the things that we destroyed. Mitch McConnell was asked, can we really afford to spend $113 billion to Ukraine? He said, don't worry. It's not really going to Ukraine.
It's going to American defense manufacturers.
So he just admitted it's a money laundering scheme. And who?
And so I'm not sure what he's going to say here next. But you've got the beginning of the money laundering scheme. And then, as RFK Jr. points out, you've got the rebuild. Well, the rebuild's going to be American contractors going over there. Now, you may say, oh, well, that's great. No, it's not. I'd rather have American contractors building here in the United States, building new factories for foreign firms coming in because they don't want the tariffs, to employ American workers. How many American workers are going to go over Ukraine and hang drywall? Not many. So let's get those firms building factories here. Forget about rebuilding Ukraine. That's not the place we want American companies to prosper.
Who do you think owns every one of those companies? BlackRock. So Tim Scott, during the Republican debate, said, don't worry, it's not a gift to Ukraine, it's a loan. So raise your hand if you think that loan's ever getting paid back. Yeah, of course it's not. So why do they call it a loan? Because if they call it a loan, they can impose loan conditions. And what are the loan conditions that we impose on? Number one, an extreme austerity program, so that if you're poor in Ukraine, you're going to be poor forever. Number two, most important, Ukraine has to put all of its government-owned assets up for sale to multinational corporations, including all of its agricultural land, the biggest single asset in Europe. In Ukraine, there's been 1,000 years of war fought over that land. It's the richest farmland in the world. It's the breadbasket of Europe. 500,000 kids almost, Ukrainian kids, have died to keep that land as part of Ukraine. They almost certainly didn't know about this loan condition. They've already sold 30% of it. The buyers were DuPont, Cargill, and Monsanto. Who do you think owns all of those companies? Yeah, BlackRock. And then in December, President Biden gave out the contract to rebuild Ukraine. And who do you think got that contract? BlackRock. So they're doing this right in front of us. They don't even care that we know anymore, because they know that they can get away with it. And how do they know that? Because they have a strategy. And that strategy is an old strategy, which is they keep us at war with each other. They keep us hating on each other. They keep the Republicans and Democrats fighting each other, black against white, and all these divisions that they sow.
Well, there's one other aspect to this of how they keep it quiet, and that's the corporate media. The corporate media is well, I actually believe the corporate media is the controlling arm of the Democrat Party. I no longer believe that Democrats control the media. I believe it's the other way around. I believe the media execs, also probably controlled by BlackRock in some respects, that the media execs control Democrat politicians by setting the narrative of what they want Democrats talking about. So you hear RFK Jr. spell out all of these ways that all of these big multinational companies, most owned by BlackRock, all of the defense contractors, everybody's making money off of this. And you control the food. Think about that. The agriculture aspect of Ukraine, you control the food, you control the world. You control whether or not there's going to be famine or not. That wheat in Ukraine really does supply to a large portion of the world. You control that, you have tremendous amount of power. So they want you to think it's about Ukraine's freedom or pushing back against the dictatorial Russia. No, it's not. It's about war. And that's all they want, because with war allows them to control all of these globalist economies. Money. It always comes back to the money, doesn't it? I'm glad we're waking up to it. You've got outlets like this, many of my friends on Rumble, talking about these kinds of things. Talk to these things to your friends. Explain it to them what's going on. And this doesn't even have to sound conspiratorial anymore. When you lay it out like we just laid it out here, this is not a conspiracy theory. It's literally fact of who's going to profit from this war. It becomes very clear what's going on. And the game that's being played is sadly on all of us. And I think at this point, it's got to end. It really does. Folks, let me tell you about Energized Health. EnergizedHealth.com. It's about cellular hydration, getting hydrated at a cellular level. That's what I've done. Look at this. I worked out arms yesterday. I'm feeling great. The reason why I'm hydrated at a cellular level Energized Health protocol has turned my life around. I lost 15 pounds in the first 2 weeks of this protocol. I've kept it off. I continue to stay healthy. My mind seems sharper. My testosterone levels are up. My cholesterol is down. As I said, 15 pounds that I lost of weight, mostly body fat, as I gained muscle mass. Everything going in the right direction. The levels that should go down are going down. The levels that should go up are going up. I feel freaking great. Even my blood pressure is lower. This is what intracellular hydration can do. And it's not just about drinking water. There's a protocol to this, patent pending. Energized Health has a 90+% success rate. They've got a 100% money back guarantee if you're not happy. So I urge you, get with Energized Health today to change your life. EnergizedHealth.com. If you have to lose 200 pounds, you can do it. And this is not about crazy diets. It's not about crazy workout plans or supplement programs. This is literally about a way of life that's very, very easy to do. Once you come to the conclusion you're going to do it. Does it take some commitment? Yes. But if you're committed to taking your life back, I don't know any other better way than Energized Health because it worked for me. EnergizedHealth.com. That's EnergizedHealth.com. You tell them, make sure you tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right. I guess we should switch gears and talk a little bit about, the ridiculous of Democrats. Do you know this situation? They're so upset, the Democrats are, with President Trump going around and rounding up illegal aliens and deporting them, people that are here illegally. You came to the country illegally, you can't be here anymore. You have an opportunity to self-deport, and if you self-deport, you can come back into the country. If you don't self-deport, you're not going to be able to. The Democrats find themselves defending MS-13 gang members, defending known terrorists. We saw this guy in Boulder. He overstayed his visa. You literally had a Democrat saying, that's not immigration. He overstayed his visa. That's the exact immigration policy of Joe Biden. Come on in, overstay, no consequences. We'll give you a work permit. What does he do? He lights Jews on fire. So they're so upset about this. Now they want to go after ICE agents. To me, this is awful.
Every single ICE agent who's engaged in this aggressive overreach and are trying to hide their identities from the American people will be unsuccessful in doing that. This is America. This is not the Soviet Union. We're not behind the Iron Curtain. This is not the 1930s. And every single one of them, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will, of course, be identified.
Now, let me just explain to Jeffries here that if you want to know who those ICE agents are, and you want to do it in a classified way behind closed doors, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary will tell you who all those agents are. We know who they are. There's no secret about their identities, except to the public. And the reason it's a secret to the public is because threats against ICE agents have increased 450% since this started. Not to mention, many of them go undercover, which is why they cover their faces. This is a common practice. You also have the cartels that want to go after these ICE agents. The ICE agents' identities have to be protected from the cartels because they operate here in the United States. The cartels do. They will go after these ICE agents in the United States. It's how they operate in Mexico. So for you to come out and say, no, uncover your face, you literally want to get these guys killed, don't you? But this is the lack of understanding from the left. No care in the world for law enforcement. They only care for the criminals, and they will do everything they can to defend the criminals, including putting federal agents in danger by doxing them. Doxing is letting them know their names, addresses, and whereabouts. My Lord. Here's another leftist lunatic, Dan Goldman.
And I asked them, I said to them, what is the point here? Are you just trying to tally more arrests? I didn't get any real response. And then I said to them, why are you wearing masks? I was a federal prosecutor for 10 years. I worked with ICE agents. I worked with law enforcement agents. I never saw any of them wear masks. This is brand new.
Why do you think it's brand new, you big dope? It's brand new because the threats have now increased thanks to Joe Biden, thanks to the rhetoric of those on the left that thinks violence is okay for anyone you disagree with to go after them, destroy their houses, destroy their cars, God forbid, try to kill them, which we see from the left, not from the right. So that's why they wear masks, and that's why you hadn't seen it before. But if you were really honest with us, you know that you had seen it before. Because anytime you have an undercover agent in an operation like this, they put these masks on. And Dan Goldman knows that.
And the question is, if everything is legitimate and proper, why are you wearing masks to hide your face?
Again, for the safety of the people. But it gets back to the idea that Democrats don't, one, if you take them on the surface of what they're saying, well, then it's clear to me they don't have any common sense. Or they're hiding from you what is really at play, which is they just hate the idea of law and order. And so now they're trying to project and say somehow we're the ones breaking the law, that it's the Gestapo wearing masks. It's literally narcissistic projection. The definition of I'll accuse you of doing what we do. And that's what the Biden administration did. Now, they may not have worn masks when they went and rounded up J6 conservatives for taking an unorganized tour of the Capitol. But it most certainly was Gestapo style, let's fight back against our political opponents. Thankfully, when you talk about enforcing the law, the Democrats don't want to acknowledge the laws on the books that give the president and the ICE agents and Border Patrol and Kristi Noem at Homeland Security and Tom Homan as the border czar, that give them the power to do what they do, simply enforce the law. They deny it. Well, there was a special moment when Ted Cruz literally called Cory Booker Spartacus to his face.
Are very, very, sir, very, very deep into the waters of hypocrisy in your criticisms of Chuck Schumer.
So let the record reflect that Spartacus did not answer the question and did not tell us whether the criminal law should be enforced, because he knows the answer is yes, and he knows that the Biden Department of Justice was being wildly political and partisan in refusing to enforce the law because they disagreed with the Supreme Court justice's rulings.
Spartacus, he calls him. Spartacus, who, by the way, gave a Hitler signal, and the media remains totally silent on it. Now, do I think Spartacus is a Nazi? No, just as I don't think Elon Musk is a Nazi. But again, if you're going to be unbiased, don't you think you ought to call it like you see it? I mean, Cory Booker literally gave the Hitler signal. And I'm not even going to do it. You know why? Because the left will then come and they will take me giving a Hitler signal here. They will take the audio out and they'll say, look at Stinchfield giving a Hitler signal on his podcast. So I'm not going to do it. But Cory Booker was so dumb, even with all of the talk about it after Elon Musk, that he still did it. I hold my heart, though, like this and say a big thank you to all of you. How about that? What are you going to do with that, leftist lunatics? Tell me. Nothing. That's what you're going to do with it. Absolutely nothing. Speaking of leftist lunatics, I saw this state representative from Connecticut, clearly a Republican. She's reading one of the books. Yes, this has come back up. This was just 2 days ago on the floor of the House of Representatives in Connecticut, State House. She's reading a book that's in the library for elementary school children. She gets shut down because the book is too raunchy. Well, that's the reason why we don't want it in elementary schools, because it's not appropriate for elementary school kids. And if it's not appropriate to be read on the House floor, then it certainly isn't appropriate to be in an elementary school library. Again, the Democrats get caught in their stupid hypocrisy and ridiculousness. So let me just play this for you now. I'm going to apologize in advance. There is some salty language in here, but that's the point.
That particular school and that book, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, are you gonna eat her pussy? Yeah, Earl, I'm going to eat her pussy.
Madam?
Hey.
I would ask that if we not try to use that type of language in the chamber, let's try to keep some decorum. I know you were talking specific books, but if we could reframe those type of words differently, because there's also people and children watching this debate. I just don't want that language out there. So I will ask kindly if we could just use either a different word or something different, just out of respect for others that might get offended. Thank you.
So they don't know what to do. Look at their faces. These people talking about, eating what on the House of the Representatives in Connecticut.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Dauphin.
I stand here to share with the chamber the books that are available in our public school libraries to the very children. You're telling me that this language isn't appropriate in this chamber. This is in elementary school libraries approved by the very individuals that are supposed to be the experts.
You see how dumb these Democrats are? Stop reading it. It's not appropriate for this chamber, for grown men and women inside the House of Representatives, the halls of justice here. It's not appropriate for us. Our virgin ears can't handle it. But a third grader can? I mean, only because I can't help it. I'll play it.
That particular school and that book, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, are you gonna eat her pussy? Yeah, Earl, I'm going to eat her pussy.
Madam?
Hey.
I would ask that if we not try...
I can't take it. It's not even funny because somebody's kid in third grade gets the book. Can you imagine if you're a parent and your kid brings this book home? Hey, Mom, can we read together? Are you going to blah, 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 blah? You just say, what? Are you not on the phone to the principal immediately, or are they so leftist in Connecticut that even parents are like, oh, I'm so glad they're teaching my children about going down on other girls? Are you kidding me? They're sick individuals. Absolutely sick. I'm never ceased to be surprised. How should I say it? I'm never surprised, is really. It ceases to amaze me how I'm never surprised by what I hear coming out of their mouths. I mean it. I really do. I mean it. All right. One last thought about the big, beautiful bill, by the way. This is the budget director who wants to make something very clear, and I thought I'd play this because Elon Musk comes out and Elon says you should be ashamed for voting for the big, beautiful bill to Republicans. It's an abomination, his tweet says, and it's the worst bill ever. Now, if I'm President Trump, I'm thinking, what in the world are you doing, Elon? I invite you in. You take a huge role in my administration. Before the election, you were so helpful to me. You're at Mar-a-Lago every day. You're coming around with me. I take your kid on Marine One, and you're going to say this about my big, beautiful bill. Now, Elon may be right, but the reality is the tax cuts are holding the big, beautiful bill hostage. We need these tax cuts to go through. The economy literally depends on it. So everything else is secondary to that. If we don't get the tax cuts passed, we're in deep shit, man. So it's hostage. Would I vote for this bill if Joe Biden had offered it up? No, I don't think I would. I wouldn't be happy with it. If President Trump offers it up, yes, because President Trump tells me to vote for it. I'm intellectually honest. I'm a soldier when it comes to the president. I mean it. I'm not happy about raising the debt ceiling $5 trillion, but I get where Republicans are going. It takes the fight away for the midterms, even though I'm not resigned to the fact that we're losing in the midterms. A lot of Republicans in Washington want to think that we're losing. I don't think we are. I think Republicans are gaining momentum in this country. And I think what President Trump is doing is helping us gain momentum in this country. So do not let them tell you we're going to lose in the midterms and that's why we need to do all these things. Yes, is it a safety mechanism? Of course. But I think we're going to win. So, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that we win. So, are there some things in this bill that I don't like? Yes. Do I want the rescissions packages? Rescissions, I don't know. They come up with all these fancy names. I just want the bills to start instituting the cuts in real life. Let's get those flowing. We're told those are delayed. But anyway, here's the budget director on Trump's big, beautiful bill.
This bill doesn't increase the deficit or hurt the debt. In fact, it lowers it by $1.4 trillion. What some of the watchdogs have done is they have used CBO's artificial baseline, which doesn't allow and assume that current tax law will be extended because of sunsets that are in the law. They don't do that with spending. It is totally something that would be foreign to any common sense person who comes and looks at how we budget in this country. And so when you assume the extension of the president's tax relief from 2017, this budget or this bill, and it's really a reconciliation bill. It's not really a budget bill. It is using a budget process. This is a $1.4 trillion over 10 years deficit reduction. It's $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings. Obviously, we have a little bit of spending in there as well for border and defense. But that is the biggest mandatory savings package that we have seen since the 1970s, 1997. It's very historic.
All right, so here's what I want members of Congress to do. Just let's get this bill behind us. It's not, if you can fight and eke out some extra savings, fine, but ultimately don't let that hold it up. Just get it behind us and let's start moving rescissions packages through, moving these votes through to start cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse that Elon Musk has found. And if Elon Musk has found fraud, I want the DOJ to start issuing indictments on where the fraudulent and fraudsters are. Okay, we're told he's going to find $1 trillion worth of waste, fraud, and abuse. If there's fraud involved, if there's abuse involved, I want indictments. So let's see it. And that needs to be a must-do. So we shall see. All right, we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff on the Real America's Voice show tonight. Before I do that, though, folks, have you heard about what's going on with parasites? 80 million Americans have them. If you eat raw sushi, if you eat pork that isn't cooked through, they get in your body. They can cause all kinds of problems. Check out this doctor.
What are the main differences between ivermectin and fenbendazole? These are two anti-pathogens used to treat parasitic infections and other similar types of conditions. They are used quite often in the oncology world to treat cancer. They both have as anti-pathogenic abilities.
All right, so ivermectin, fenbendazole combination. It's a new parasitic cleanse from the wellness company. Look at that. That's in salmon. You eat that, they live in your body, they grow. Parasites now apparently responsible for some cancers. Watch the podcast from yesterday. It's fascinating. But you can get a parasite cleanse from the wellness company. It's great. twc.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT. Fenbendazole and ivermectin sold out 3 times already. And they're selling like hotcakes because people want to rid their bodies of these things. So go to twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT for 10% off. And don't forget the Wellness Company medical emergency kits, which are prescription medications, 8 of the most common ones you may need in an emergency. So you don't have to get to the doctor. You don't have to get to the drugstore. You're going to have this kit on hand, and you're going to be ready for anything. twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT. All right, folks, that is going to do it for us today. Don't forget my website, GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com. Share, like the video, promote the video, tell your friends about the program. All of that is greatly appreciated. God bless all of you. Stinchfield's Army rolls. We'll see you tonight on the Real America's Voice show, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.